Hey, and welcome back to Big Guy Fantasy Sports. This is James Knight. I'm here to bring you the last minute ADP rankings, some player jumps for the drafts coming up this week and weekend, which will be the last draft weekend before the regular season kickoff of the NFL. Stick around. I'm going to go through a couple of players who I find in the first couple of rounds that have moved up. They've gotten some news recently. Their ADP has jumped and their rank has jumped. Hang on, and I'll be right back. Hey, like I said, welcome back, and we're going to go through some stuff here for some ADP. I wrapped up my weekly ADP series, written articles today, with it being this last week of right before the regular season. So I wanted to touch on a few players today who I believe that their ADPs and their actual rankings in drafts have moved up on some news and some things the most over the past month or so. So let's go ahead and jump into some of those and see what we've got going today. I'm going to start at quarterback. The biggest riser who's jumped up into the top ranks is Dak Prescott, the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. He's no stranger to being a top quarterback. He's been a QB1 almost every season that he's actually been healthy and been able to play at least 16 games. Last year, he only appeared in 8 games. That was his lowest total since 2020. And, I mean, the injuries added up, turned his season upside down. He ended up finishing QB 20 in points per game. And that's pretty rough for him. His clutch rate came in at 25%, which is well below his career average. He's usually right around 65% for his career, which is pretty good. So last year, like I said, was an outlier with some injuries. Pretty much the whole Cowboys season just went up in smoke, after Dak went down and got hurt. But all you have to do is look back a couple of years, like I said, when Dak's been healthy. You go back to 2023, Dak was QB3 overall and QB4 in points per game. He actually averaged 20.7 points per game that year. So that's pretty big for him. His last 2 healthy seasons, which includes 2023 and then 2021, he played 16 and 17 games. He averaged 593 passes per season, which is huge. Puts him in the top 5 volume for most passes in a season by a quarterback. This year, the Cowboys brought in George Pickens to be the wide receiver 2 to CeeDee Lamb. That's a huge upgrade, the best wide receiver 2 they've had in Dallas since Amari Cooper was there. And I believe with that volume of the pretty lackluster running game, the Cowboys are going to air it out a ton this year. We're going to see Dak right around that 600 pass attempts again, and that very much puts him up towards the top. One of the reasons he's on this list, though, is he started out about a month ago. His ADP was right around 138. As of today, his ADP has jumped up to 110. He went from QB 14 in the rankings all the way to QB 11. So if you're in a 12-team league, he has now moved up into that QB1 tier based on the things I was saying. Everybody believes that passing volume is going to get bigger. The Cowboys are going to throw it a ton. George Pickens is going to eat there, and CeeDee Lamb is already one of the top 3 wide receivers in all the NFL. Most people, can alternate him, Jamar Chase, or Justin Jefferson for the top spot. So Dak Prescott was a huge mover over the last month at quarterback and is now in the QB1 rankings. Moving right along from that, I want to touch on a running back who's a rookie. I liked him coming out of college, and I like him even more now, is Trevion Henderson, the running back for the New England Patriots. In his first preseason game, they put him at kick returner. The first time he touches the ball, runs for a touchdown, takes it to the house. Just every time he seems to touch the ball this preseason, it's electric. He's just full of all kind of energy, and he's undoubtedly going to supplant Ramondre Stevenson as the RB1 in New England at some point. There's still some talk about, the 2 of them splitting carries and doing certain things, but Henderson is by far the more electric running back in that backfield. So much so that offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels, He had been with New England before. He's back. He's taken the offensive coordinator job on Mike Vrabel's staff, and he's been gushing over Henderson, saying he's potentially the fastest running back he's ever had. He said, Trevion is fast. I'm excited to be with him. So, McDaniels is going to have some things to do. He's going to give Henderson multiple opportunities to score, put him in situations where plays are designed for him, and that's fantastic. Again, I'm 100% in on Trevion. I was in on him when he was lower ADP earlier in the season, which about a month ago, he was coming in around 87. He has now jumped up as of today to 51 overall, and he went from RB13 to RB19. Coming into the season, I liked him so much. I could see him being a mid to low end RB2. So him coming in at RB19, I'm absolutely okay with that price, and we'll pay that in any draft. So keep that in mind this weekend as you're looking at boards. He's going to move up a little bit, but be sure to look for him around that RB 15 to 18 range if you want to get him, so you can make sure you secure him on your team. Another running back that I want to talk about, anybody who follows me, anybody who follows me on X or reads my articles and things knows that I'm all in on James Cook, the running back for Buffalo. Early in the preseason, there was a lot of worry about it. He was holding in. He had not signed a contract. He was wanting big-time money. People were saying that Ray Davis was going to just take over and that the Bills weren't going to pay James Cook. Well, James Cook now has a 4-year, $48 million new deal. He is back to being the number one option in that backfield for Buffalo. And the one thing I'll say, he's super talented. I've always believed in the talent. He had it at Georgia. He came into the league with it. He needed opportunity. And last season, he got that opportunity. He ran for 16 touchdowns, caught 2 more touchdowns. So he had 18 touchdowns overall. A lot of people say that there's going to be touchdown regression and he's going to drop down and do that. My argument for that, though, is Buffalo doesn't have a ton of playmakers. They got rid of Stephon Diggs a couple years ago. They really haven't replaced him with anybody else. You've got Khalil Shakir there, Keon Coleman, a slew of wide receiver 2, 3 types, your Elijah Moores, your Josh Palmers, Curtis Samuel. And then, like I said, Ray Davis, he's behind James Cook. They gave James Cook the money because they know that behind Josh Allen in that offense, James Cook is their best, most explosive player. They're going to use him this year. They're going to be a top 5 offense again, and James Cook is going to score double-digit touchdowns. And this is the crazy part about him. He keeps getting disrespected and dropping. Like his ADP last month at this time was 48. It has moved up to 32 now after the contract news. He was RB16 then. He's moved up to RB13. He's still not listed as an RB1. You're talking about a guy that is now coming off of 2 straight consecutive seasons of being an RB1, a top 12 running back. He's the top playmaker in a top 5 offense, and he's still not listed as an RB1. He's at RB13. I'm all over that too. If I can get him and Henderson as you're backing out in those 3rd and 4th rounds and doing that kind of stuff, I'm super excited about that. And one more running back that I wanted to touch on who's got some news, really, really, really heavy news today. The Tennessee Titans announced that they were putting Tyjae Spears on IR. What that means is he's going to miss the first 4 weeks of the season. He's already guaranteed to miss at least those first 4 weeks. This backfield with Tony Pollard had always kind of been a 1A, 1B. There had been some talk about Spears maybe getting some more touches. But now with him on the IR, set to miss at least 4 weeks, Tony Pollard is shooting up boards, and as he should be. He's been a great running back over the past couple of seasons. He's been proven efficient. People knocked him and said he couldn't be a workhorse. He proved that wrong in Tennessee last year. He proved it wrong before in Dallas. The reason I say that, he's at least been an RB2 for 2 straight seasons. He's had over 300 touches back-to-back seasons, finished as RB22 in points per game just last year. It was 12.5 points per game. It came in because he played the whole season as RB21 overall. That was also his 3rd straight season in a row of rushing for more than 1,000 yards, which is, in a system when you look at Pollard, you don't really think about him being a 1,000-yard back every year. But 3 straight years he's done that. He's also caught at least 39 passes every year for the past 4 years. So in your PPR, half PPR leagues, or half points per reception league, he's basically tacking on those extra 2 points a game every game for you, and he's in 1,000-yard rusher. You add that to the fact that Spears is going to miss the first 4 games. The Titans don't really have anybody else who they're going to be able to lean on. It's going to be the Pollard show up front. And if he continues to come out of the gates hot like he has in years past, he'll hold that job. He'll be a very, very steady RB2 who will have RB1 games moving forward this season. His ADP last month was 83. He's moved up to 73. And like I said, the reason that I was including him, I wanted to include some guys who had done this. He moved from RB27 to RB24. Like I said, so he's at the very tail end of RB2 ranks. That's where he's ranked at right now. And his ADP is kind of reflecting that to push him back to early, RB3 status. That's a really good deal for, like I said, a guy who can be an RB2, get you RB1 weeks. And I forgot about his clutch ratio. When you look at his clutch ratio, last year was 56%. He had been hovering over 60% for his career. So you're still looking at a very, very, very consistent running back, despite the fact that he had shared some time with Tajay Spears last season and did some things like that. And he technically didn't take the lead job in Dallas until his final season there as well. So if you're drafting this weekend, drafting anytime this week, keep an eye on Tony Pollard. Watch him fall. In my rankings, he's technically the last running back that I really, really feel good about as an RB1, a starter that you can plug and play in your lineup and you feel really good about, who's not really in a committee. And speaking of which, if you are drafting, hey, today's show is brought to you by Fantasy Draft Channel, one of the most innovative products featured at the recent Fantasy Football Expo. Here's the problem that every fantasy commissioner knows. Modern drafts have become silent, boring affairs. Everyone sits around, staring at their phones, staring at their laptops, waiting for beeps and boops to tell them it's their turn. Where's the energy? Where's the excitement? That's what we're here for. Fantasy Draft Channel solves this with AI-powered commentary that transforms your sleeper draft into a live broadcast experience. Think ESPN-level commentary, but personalized for your league dynamics. The Fantasy Football Expo team was so impressed, they featured Fantasy Draft Channel at the Draft Night Out event. The response was incredible. People were laughing and engaging with each other, discussing commentary instead of just staring at their devices. With only 1 week left in draft season, don't let your remaining drafts be forgettable. Fantasy Draft Channel brings back the energy and social experience that made fantasy football fun in the first place. If you're drafting on Sleeper this week or Labor Day weekend, visit fantasydraftchannel.com and use code LAUNCH10, LAUNCH10, for $10 off your first draft. Your league will thank you for the upgrade. I'm telling you, some fantastic products. If you haven't been to the Fantasy Football Expo before, go. Some of the greatest people, some of the most innovative products, some of the most awesome things you'll see, and that Fantasy Draft Channel is one of those. Moving on into this next set of grouping of players, we're going to go into some wide receivers here. The first guy I want to touch on is for the Kansas City Chiefs, Xavier Worthy. He's a polarizing player. Super fast, came into the league last year. Rashee Rice was kind of the one there. Rice went down. He got hurt. Worthy started taking over. And there's a lot of speculation this year that Worthy's going to be able to take the next step. And we're all 100% waiting on what's going to happen to Rashee Rice. Is he getting suspended? I mean, I think yes. I think we all know it's definitely going to happen. But when is it going to happen? Either way, he's going to miss some time. There's some speculation the league has asked for up to 10 games in the suspension. Players Association kind of put a hold on that. They're negotiating. So we're looking at minimum probably 4 games here. Could be more. And that's where Xavier Worthy steps in. When the absence of Rice was in the lineup last year, Worthy would eat. It's just that simple. Overall, he finishes the wide receiver 33, and that was with mixed games with Rice. That was with him being a rookie and coming in and slow playing. Andy Reid doesn't like to put too much on a rookie's plate, and he continually did that with Worthy last year, where he slowly integrated him into the lineup. He did average 11 points per game overall. Like I said, not bad. Wide receiver 33. That makes him a wide receiver 3 already by himself before anything else. But as the season went on, he continued to earn targets at a much higher rate. He averaged 10.33 targets per game over the last 3 games he played in. In those 3 games, he averaged 21 points per game in PPR settings. That's pretty amazing and shows that not only did Mahomes trust him, but Andy Reid was designing plays and utilizing his speed as a home run threat in that offense. His clutch rate didn't reflect that as much throughout the whole year. It was at 50%. Again, not bad for a rookie, not bad for somebody who had to be slow played along for the year. But, you throw that out the window and look at what he did towards the end of the year. From week 11 on, he only had 2 games that were under 10 PPR points. Week 12, he scored 9.1. Week 14, he scored 9.6. That's about as consistent as you're going to get, and you're going to get that down the line. The Chiefs didn't really bring in anybody at receiver to take anything off them. They did draft Jalen Royals, but Royals is more of a project-type receiver, and he's not going to take anything else. When Rice is out on suspension, Worthy's going to be the guy that is leaned on as the speed receiver who can get yards after the catch and help Patrick Mahomes out. Last month, he was clocking in at 66th overall in his ADP. He's jumped up 16 spots to 50 now. What that did is that jumped him from wide receiver 25 outside of the wide receiver 2 range to wide receiver 20. Like I said, he averaged 21 points in those last 3 games where he was getting 10-plus targets a game. If Rice is unavailable, or if Worthy even potentially takes that next step, even with Rice, you could look at 8 to 10 targets a game for Worthy. That may not get him to the 21 points he was scoring before, but if he's in that 17, 18, 19 range, then his wide receiver 20 ranking right now is about right on point. He should be a mid to low end wide receiver 2 with some spike weeks that'll get you into the wide receiver 1 spot. All right. This is another receiver who is all about opportunity too. Jackson Smith-Njigba came into the league. He had already played at Ohio State and played with some of the best receivers in the NFL. I did so many. It's wild to even think about how good that school is. Wide receiver U, a lot of people call it. Well, he came into the league. He came into a crowded situation in Seattle, as we all know. They had DK Metcalf. They had Tyler Lockett. Those guys were already there and were dominating targets. But Jackson Smith-Njigba kept learning, kept understanding the system, and now he steps into a clear wide receiver 1 role as Metcalf and Lockett are both elsewhere. Metcalf's moved on to Pittsburgh. Lockett is in Tennessee. So last season, even with those guys, he still had over 1,100 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns. So JSN was putting up numbers and was already blossoming into a wide receiver 1. They did bring in Cooper Kupp, who's going to come in and going to help out with alleviating some of the stress of Lockett and Metcalf gone. But Kupp is, let's be honest, he's a shell of his former self. So I don't think he's going to absolutely come in and dominate targets. He's on the wrong side of 30. And if anything, I think he came back home to Washington where he went to school at and did that. And he's enjoying this part of the end of his career. And I think he's going to actually help Njigba understand some more route nuances and do some things that Kupp's always done so well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see JSN take a huge leap this year, like he did towards the end of last year. From weeks 8 through 16, he had at least 69 receiving yards in every game, and he topped out at 180 against the Rams in one of those games. So he's in for a huge amount of volume as the wide receiver 1 in Seattle. There could be some, worry. Geno Smith has moved on. He went to the Raiders. But you brought in Sam Darnold, who threw 30-plus touchdowns last year. He supported Justin Jefferson. Not to mention Hawkinson and Addison and some other guys down there. So I think Darnold's going to be, almost the same exact thing, if not better than what Smith was. And I think Smith-Njigba is going to put up some huge numbers this year. He moved from ADP 50 last month up to 38 this month. That moved him in the rankings from wide receiver 19 to wide receiver 15. He's creeping closer and closer to that top 12 where he can be a wide receiver 1 for your actual rankings. And would I feel comfortable if he was my wide receiver 1? Probably not. I would need to be stacked at other places. But if I can get him as a wide receiver 2, where I feel like he is a borderline cusp wide receiver 1 guy, if I draft him as my wide receiver 2, I'm extremely confident. So make sure if you miss out on a big guy or if you're trying to just stack wide receivers up, watch for when he comes up around that late second, early third roundish type spot in your draft, okay? He's gonna be a steal this year, and he's gonna cement his name up towards the top of that list for wide receivers. And the last player I really want to touch on, I wanted to have a tight end in here, and the guy that I just can't get enough of. I keep hearing more and more, and I thought I was out on him, but it's Tyler Warren for the Indianapolis Colts. He was the 14th pick overall in this year's draft, and the more I watch him play, the more I watch preseason, the more I watch him command targets in that offense, the more I really think he's going to be a steal as a tight end this year. In college, he won all kind of accolades, did all kinds of stuff. He was the Big Ten tight end of the year, second team Associated All-American, Associated Press All-American. I think he even finished as high as 7th in the Heisman Trophy vote, which is crazy for a tight end. That's actually the highest a tight end has finished in the Heisman voting in 50 years. It was 1977 when Ken McAfee finished 3rd. So that should tell you something about what kind of player he is. And, the worry is he comes in to Indianapolis. They've got Michael Pittman. They've got Josh Downs. They've actually got a kind of underrated receiver room. Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, a really pretty well-rounded receiving room. A lot of worry about him getting targets from those guys. A lot of worry about whether the starter was going to be Anthony Richardson or not. Richardson was under 50% completion last year, bad for all the receiving options. Well, Shane Steichen, the head coach for Indianapolis, announced the starting quarterback, not for week 1, for the year, is going to be Daniel Jones. That rises all boats. Everybody, the tide rises everybody there with Daniel Jones. And I think he's going to lock in with Warren. Warren's going to be an underneath option for him. Very similar to the kind of stuff that we saw when he was in New York, when Daniel Jones was in New York. He locked in on a sure-handed target, Wan'Dale Robinson, who was catching 8, 10, 12 passes in some games as that underneath safety blanket. Tyler Warren can do those things, and he is incredibly versatile. I mean, you're talking about his last year in school. He also threw a touchdown and ran for 4 more touchdowns. So that is super versatile. He did a little bit of everything in college, and he's going to do that for the Colts too. I think that they may have drafted themselves a star. A month ago, his ADP was coming in at 123. He's bumped up to 100 now as of today, which moved him from tight end 14 in my rankings to tight end 10. So 12-team league, he is 100% worth getting, and he's got the potential to creep up 4 or 5 spots. If he finishes the top 5 tight end this year, I wouldn't be shocked. So you miss out on some of the top 3 guys. You miss out on McBride, Bowers, and Kittle. Wait a little bit. Get Tyler Warren in that 8th, 9th, 10th round. You're doing yourself a favor, saving a early pick for a wide receiver or running back, and you're still going to get a tight end who's potentially going to be one of the top tight ends of the year. And so that'll wrap it up for what we're going through today. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and these are just some last-minute ADP ranking adjustments for your drafts coming up this week. I know, like I said, we've got a long weekend coming up for Labor Day weekend, and then a week from this Thursday, we will have the NFL kickoff for Thursday night. Super, super excited about it. Hope you all enjoyed the show, and if you did, shoot me a follow on X. @JKeezy is where you can find me, and if you want to follow me on there or reach out to me, I'd love to talk football with all of you guys. If you haven't already, be sure to sign up for Big Guy Fantasy Sports. the best consistency tools in all the business, all kinds of fantasy goodness. Sign up, check us out, look around at the articles, let us know, give us some feedback. And thanks again, everyone, for joining me. And absolutely good luck in your drafts this week, this weekend, and good luck in fantasy football this season.